Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Not every man is created equal. 80% of the people in the world are blessed to have a quirk, while the remaining 20% don't. In a world full of quirks, heroes and villains occur. In a place somewhere in Mustafu, Japan, a green-haired boy walks the streets. He has matching color of green hair and eyes. But his most notable feature in the boy's face is his 4 freckles on each cheek, seemingly aligned in a diamond. This boy is Izuku Midoriya, 14 years of age. He is a shy, timid middle school student of Alder Middle School. He is smart, kind, and always thinks of others before himself. Growing up, he always aspired to become a hero after watching All Might and other heroes appear in TV. He always wants to be a hero to save others with a smile on his face, like All Might. That's why he was so excited to get his quirk back when he was 4, only to know he wasn't going to get one. At the age of 4, Izuku was diagnosed as quirkless. From that point on, his life went downhill quick. His mom became distant, his dad left them for work and hasn't come back since. His friend, Katsuki Bakugo, hits him with his explosion quirk and starts calling him Deku. Izuku endured all the beatings and insults his friend had did to him, thinking the Ash Blonde will become an amazing hero even after being literally beaten to the ground by the young Bakugo. But even the nicest person snaps, and Izuku, for instance, grew tired of becoming his punching bag and for once stood up for himself. In class, Katsuki decided to torment Izuku, who was silently writing in his hero journal number 13 before the class could even start. He and his lackeys surround the quirkless boy with his 2 lackeys on each side of the desk, while Bakugo was in front. Seeing Izuku didn't notice them, the blonde boy, being an idiot, tried blasting the hero journal while Izuku was still writing on the desk. However, he didn't expect Izuku to slap his hand away from the desk, redirecting the explosion to one of his lackeys who was idiotically standing at the side of the brunette's desk, knocking him unconscious to the wall. All of that while he was still writing on his notebook. Good thing Izuku was sitting at the far back corner of the class and no one got hit. Well, except the lackey, of course. Still shell-shocked, Bakugo tried again, and Izuku did the same thing, only doing the opposite side. This time hitting the other lackey, who was thrown back to a nearby desk and collapsed at the ground groaning. Bakugo was shocked, AMD fuming to see Deku dodging/misdirecting his attacks with ease. The worst part of it was the quirkless loser did it like it was nothing. Enraged by this, he pulled the boy's collar and threw a nasty right hook, only to be dodged. Izuku dodged the punch after experiencing the attack for almost 10 years, countered by punching the blonde square to his nose, breaking it in the process, shocking the class that the quirkless loser had just punched the strongest kid in class. Some students silently cringed knowing Izuku wouldn't survive this one, while others praised him for stepping up and fighting back against the bully. The blonde looked at Izuku while clutching his bleeding, broken nose. The brunette looked at him in a blank face, but he knew that in his eyes that the quirkless boy was mocking him. This only angered Bakugo even more, using his quirk to propel himself in front of the brunette, tackling him to the floor and beating him to a pulp. Izuku tried his best to block the attacks, but Bakugo, having a quirk, is really hard to defend against. Not until a teacher entered the room. The teacher saw the unconscious lackeys laying on the floor with burn marks and Bakugo on top of a beaten-up Izuku. He quickly brought Izuku, Bakugo, and his lackeys to the school clinic. After getting their injuries patched up, Bakugo and Izuku were escorted to the principal's office to get an explanation about what just occurred. As usual, Bakugo would bend the truth and tell the principal that Izuku started the fight, thinking Izuku would just stutter his explanation into making himself look guilty. Like always, that is when Izuku looked the principal straight in the eye and told him what had really happened, which surprised the principal. This made Bakugo widen his eyes as Izuku not only didn't stutter a storm, but also ratted him out. Hearing both of their sides, the principal decided to suspend both of them. Izuku and the lackeys will be suspended for 2 weeks and Bakugo for 3 weeks, and after the suspension the latter will be attending anger management sessions after class. Izuku has the shorter suspension since he only attacked in self-defense. The lackeys were suspended for trying to participate in tormenting the quirkless boy. Mind the word trying, since they didn't get a chance to do anything. And finally, Bakugo has the longest since he not only instigated the fight, he also used his quirk in a public area, damaged school property, and caused injuries to Midoriya, and the anger management session speaks for itself. After the talk with the principal, Izuku was excused to go home first since letting the two go back to class will only cause more problems. Izuku bowed to the principal and asked forgiveness before going home. After a couple of minutes, he let Bakugo to go back to class to fetch his things and go home. As the blonde left with a scowl on his face, the principal had smiled internally. Seeing as the once shy, timid, quirkless boy had just stepped up to his bully and even managed to hit him. Still thinking about the green-haired boy, the principal went to his computer and opened Izuku Midoriya's student profile, where you can see his records having so much dirt on it with violations he clearly didn't even do. Looking at the file, he quickly removed the bad remarks about the boy and typed in the remarks that should have been there the whole time. He didn't really want to put bad remarks on the Greenette's record, but being quirkless made the principal fear what could happen to the boy if he became a hero. And seeing the boy's kind and timid personally made the principal to do everything, even to put dirt on the boy's record just to keep him out of danger caused by the heroics department. But seeing how he had deflected the explosion and punched the strongest student in Aldera, he showed passion and bravery that only a hero would have. The principal had to trust the boy on his decision to be a hero. The boy deserved to have a shot at the UA entrance exams. Finished in editing the Greenette's file, he saved it and placed it back to the folder named UA Applicants, where there are only two of them there. Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. He knew these two will become great heroes, and only time will tell. After collecting his stuff and exiting the campus, Izuku decided not go home just yet. It was still early, and going home this early would make his mom ask him questions he wouldn't really want to answer just now. So he decided to go walk around the streets of Mustafu. He walked under a bridge when an eerie voice echoed from behind him. What do we have here? A medium-sized disguise. He looked back to see a mucky green sludge creature towering over him. He felt fear overcome him as the sludge villain wrapped itself onto him. A villain, he thought as the sludge villain forced himself into his mouth and throat. Izuku could feel his throat burn as the bile liquid forcefully made way through his throat. He could hear the villain laugh and tell him to keep quiet before he could find him. But Izuku didn't care to listen as he did his best to claw out the sludge off him to no avail. Have no fear. The Greenette blacked out when the manhole burst open and came out a bulky blonde man. For I am here. The sludge villain flinched when the man reeled his fist back in a punching movement. Texas. Smash. The punch went through the sludge villain, but the wind pressure blew away the sludge, freeing the unconscious boy. Izuku woke up when he felt repeated slapping on his cheek. Groggily waking up, he there sees the number one hero himself, All Might. He freaked out and frantically looked for his hero journal only to see it open, on All Might's page, with a signature. Izuku felt overjoyed that the man he had always adored signed his journal. He turned to say thank you when he saw the man on a jumping pose. And then a thought came into his mind and quickly ran to the hero. He grabbed onto the man's leg as the flew up. The man noticed a weight on his leg, and when he looked at his leg, he saw Izuku, with hair and mouth getting hit by the wind. He asked the boy to let go, only to be told that if the boy let go he would die. Seeing no point of debating and feeling his limit coming, they landed on a nearby rooftop. Not noticing a bottle filled with sludge fell off the hero's pocket. As they land on the rooftop, Izuku tried to balance himself after getting disoriented. It was too much for his scrawny body, and it almost made him puke. All Might was about to leap away when Izuku stopped him. Can a quirkless person become a hero? The question made the hero stop on his tracks. Izuku began to shyly talk about how being a hero and helping people had always been his dream, but he was quirkless. As Izuku was rambling, he didn't notice All Might's body began to emit smoke and slowly turn skinny. Izuku turned to the hero's direction only to see a skinny blonde man. The boy freaked out once again, but the man quickly shut him off by explaining how he got in his current condition. All Might then began telling Izuku how difficult a life of a pro hero is and how it would be even more dangerous for a quirkless person to be in that line of work, and how being a policeman or firefighter would be a better fit for Izuku if he really wanted to help people. With a last look at the downcasted boy, All Might left the building and noticed the bottle where the villain was in become missing. He began to get nervous. when an explosion echoed to on the next block. Feeling nervous, he rushed towards the place where the explosion came from. After that encounter with All Might, Izuku didn't felt like going home for a moment. Instead of going straight to their apartment, he decided to go to a place where he has always felt free. He decided to go to the Dagoba Beach Municipal Park. Even though it was basically a junkyard now, he liked to sitting on the sand and just listen to the waves crashing into each other. He always go to the place every time he tried to run away from Bakugo or if he had an argument with his mom. The beach may be filled with trash and junk, but Izuku used the place to calm himself and think clearly. As Izuku took a right turn in an alleyway for a shortcut, a red blur suddenly grabbed him and placed a hand over his mouth. "Don't even dare make a sound, or you'll get it," the man whispered in a yell, pressing Izuku's face harder with his hand, while showing red lightning on his other hand near the greenette's face, scaring the boy. The man pulled the boy in the alleyway while looking in every direction, trying to see if someone will come to the alley. Izuku began shaking in fear, not really liking the fact that he had been captured by a villain twice in one day. Thrice if you count the Pomeranian that uses sweat as explosives. Not really my lucky day, eh? He thought sarcastically as he was dragged by the man. Looking at the man, Izuku can see that the man is wearing an orange shirt and pants, letting the boy to guess that the man is a prisoner that escaped. He was trying to think of a way to escape the man's grasp when his eyes darted towards the man's other hand that had red lightning flowing on the limb. Izuku observed the flowing energy and was mesmerized by it, and he don't know why, but he can feel that the lightning is calling to him, or he may have gotten his head hit hard because he is probably hallucinating. Just as Izuku was about to touch the lightning, why though? He was hallucinating probably, when a voice called out from behind them. "Let the kid go, Akira," a voice said from the side, making Izuku look at the direction of the voice. In the other end of the alleyway there Izuku saw a tall man wearing a red beanie, white hoodie over a red flannel shirt, a bright blue denim jeans, and a denim vest on top of the hoodie. The man has a chain wrapped around his right forearm as a bracelet. Izuku noticed that the man's hands were glowing a bright orange and smoke was coming out of the man's hands, easily indicating that his hands are hot. Is that his quirk? Izuku thought. He slightly yelped when the man's lightning-covered hand came an inch from the boy's face. "Stay back, Delson, or this kid gets it." The escapee yelled at the beanie-wearing man, trying to keep the man from coming closer. The man now known as Delson looked at Izuku, who teared up slightly, shaking and frightened for his life. He then looked back at the hostage-taker. "Akira, you need to calm down. Let the kid go and let's talk about this," he said, slowly walking towards the two. "F you. I ain't going back to jail." The now known Akira yelled at the beanie-wearing man as he held Izuku tighter, earning another yelp from Izuku. "You're not. Let the kid go and we'll work this out," Delson pleaded. Akira didn't budge and just moved his hand closer to the boy's face, close enough for some of the lightning to slightly shocking the boy. Izuku was surprised by the shock, but instead of getting hurt, he felt tickled him. He looked at the man in the end of the alleyway, Delson, and stared at the man's eyes. The man stared back at the boy and saw that the boy was calm. He saw Izuku's hand slowly lifting up and immediately knew what the boy was about to do. "Kid, don't do it," he yelled, running at the boy and Akira. The latter, seeing Delson move, pushed his lightning-covered hand to Izuku, only to be surprised as Izuku grabbed his hand. Izuku felt a slight jolt over his body, but it didn't hurt. He noticed the lightning just went through his body, and it felt ticklish at first, then a wave of unfamiliar memories entered his mind. In his mind, he saw the man's life. His name is Akira Takahashi, 37-year-old man from Tokyo, a conduit and villain that had been running away from city to city. Theft and attempted murder. He had been caught by Delson 3 days ago, but escaped after the vehicle was hit by an explosion in the nearby street. The memories were cut off when Delson was in front of the man and punched him with a smoke-covered punch. Akira was thrown back, and it made his grip on Izuku loosen up, and the boy fell down on the ground, still dazed by the sudden flow of memories. Before Akira could go back up, concrete slabs began to surround him and completely encase him, leaving his head out. He tried to move his body and use his lightning when he couldn't feel his power. He was about to yell at Delson when a punch landed on his face, knocking him out. The smoke user diverted his attention to the still shell-shocked teen. He slowly approached Izuku and reached out a hand in front of the boy. "Need a hand, kid?" he said at the boy, who was snapped out of his daze, and looked at the hand and at the man. Delson gave him a small smile, but deep inside he was worried about the kid. He just witnessed the boy grab a lightning cover hand and was somehow dazed by it. He wondered if the kid had an electric resistance quirk, because he tanked the shock like it was nothing. Izuku slowly reached out to the outstretched hand and nodded at the man. "Yeah, thank you for save." He was cut off when smoke suddenly came out of the man's hand as he held it, and another wave of unfamiliar memories entered his mind once more. Delson Rowe, a.k.a. the Banner Man, 30 years old, Native American from the Akamish tribe, a conduit, vigilante/freedom fighter, and the savior of Seattle, had came to Japan to hunt down Akira, who had been in the wanted list of Delson and his gang, Abigail Walker and Eugene Sims. Captured Akira but got struck by an explosion from a nearby street and gave chase on the escaping bioterrorist. Delson saw the smoke come out of his arm and was about to pull it away from the green-haired boy when said boy lost consciousness and began falling down. He barely caught the boy and slowly leaned him on the wall. Delson knew exactly what happened and was in a mix of being skeptical, worried, and happy. Skeptical because he could never know if the boy would choose to use his abilities for good or evil. He didn't know the boy, and he had just been converted into a conduit, or bioterrorists are a subspecies of humans who possess superhuman abilities afforded to them by the presence of the conduit gene. Worried, because he knew that conduits don't get the best treatment even after his good deeds back in Seattle. There are people who hated conduits, and most of them are people with powers called quirks, seemingly out of envy, and a buttload of superiority complexes in them. Conduits are treated as villains and receive the same treatment like those who are quirkless, maybe even worse. So the boy's life will go downhill after this encounter. Though even if he was skeptical and worried, he is feeling happy. Not really knowing why, but looking at the bravery the kid showed earlier, he can see that the boy had guts and had a heart of a hero. He then noticed a notebook on the ground, picked it up and flipped through its pages. To say he was impressed was an understatement. The notes were in detail and specified the uses of quirks of Japan's pro-heroes. Delson looked at the sleeping form of the kid and smiled. He had decided he would help this kid to become a hero and master his new conduit abilities. He may not know the kid personally, but looking at the notes and his reckless yet brave act earlier, the kid is destined for greatness. And maybe, just maybe, this kid would make the world change their view on conduits. Delson then closed the book and saw his name. Izuku Midoriya, huh? He looked at the teen and smiled. He was going to help the boy. After all, conduits look out for one another. In a dark place, our main protagonist opens his eyes to see two faint lights flickering in front of him. Confused and slightly nervous is his emotions, remembering that he was supposed to be in an alleyway. How did he get here? Where is he anyways? Standing up, he glanced towards the flickering lights shining like Christmas lights. It feels like they're calling me, he thought as he looked around. As he wondered where the heck is he flinched when the lights suddenly zoomed its way toward his face, stopping only a few inches away from him. He backed away from it. Looking at it, the lights were in a shape of orbs. They are same in shape and size, but different in color and aspect it shows. One has dark orange hue, comparable with the color of sunrise. This orb has white and black smoke covering and circling around it. The other orb is showing an electric blue hue. Noticing the blue lightning and cold smoke coming from the orb, he concluded that this shows an aspect of lightning and ice combined into one. For a couple of minutes, he stared at the orbs. Izuku was so lost in thought that he didn't notice his left and right hand slowly rises at the orange and blue orb, respectively. As the greenette touched the orbs, a surge of power suddenly entered his body. His left side feeling heat, while his right feels tingly and cold. However, he can feel his right side begins to heat up for a bit until it was the same as his left side. He looked at his hands and noticed that they were glowing orange and smoke was surrounding it. Just imagine Izuku smiling instead of Delson. Izuku can't explain why, but he couldn't stop himself from smiling at the power he was feeling right now. But a part of him was saddened. He knew to himself that he was only dreaming, and this will be gone as soon as he woke up. So before he woke up, he was about to use this power as long as he is still sleeping. Izuku began to channel the power on his hand and experimented on it. He tried running with the smoke covering him, and he found himself to be faster. He can also phase through objects as long as the object has holes or spaces where smoke can travel or go through, using the steel screen barriers and vents that somehow appeared out of nowhere. He can also shoot balls of smoke. It took him 3 tries for him to shoot smoke from his hands. He even made a larger one, but causes too much energy. When Izuku tried to use the large blast, he couldn't produce the right amount and collapsed to the ground, panting. Suddenly, a strange symbol appeared in front of Izuku. Sorry if the picture is low quality, I just took and edited this from a gameplay video. The smoke-like markings are short. Maybe this is the amount of energy of the power, he mumbled as he shakily stood up, still panting. As he was about to move, a figure appeared in front of him. Izuku was startled and fell onto his back. He stared at the figure in front of him, which was only a shadow. Izuku began shaking in fear when the figure began releasing lightning energy and walked towards him. The figure stopped a feet away from Izuku and knelt on his level. "St. It is you, Dudaya," the man said in a distorted way. Izuku couldn't understand what the figure had said. He was about to ask what the person in front of him was saying when he was shook out of the dream. Izuku groggily opens his eyes and slowly sat up. He had headache from the craziest dream just experienced. Man, that was a crazy dream. He mumbled to himself as he rubbed his temples, not noticing the man standing in front of him. What kind of dream, kid? Izuku flinched, now noticing the man who had saved his life, Delson Rowe. He was leaning on a wall with the boy's hero journal on his right hand. The man was looking at the boy with a smile. "MMR, Delson Rowe. Thank you for saving Madame," Izuku said as he bowed rapidly and repeatedly. Delson's sweat dropped at the boy's stutters. "Don't sweat it, kid. I'm happy to help." He then handed the notebook to the stuttering teen. "I think this is yours." Izuku looked at the outstretched notebook and saw that it was his hero journal. He slowly took and bowed again, thanking the man for the nth time for saving his life. The convict just laughed at the boy's awkwardness. "You're one awkward kid, aren't you?" Delson said, causing the boy to stop bowing and scratch the back of his neck sheepishly. "Say, your hero journal is interesting, kid. Do you plan on becoming a hero?" he asked the boy, who noticeably changed from sheepish to gloom in seconds. "Yeah, I was planning on applying for the hero course in UA. But I can't be a hero since I'm quirkless." Izuku said the last part in a whisper, but Delson was able to hear it. "What are you talking about, kid? You can be a hero even without a ka." He was cut off when Izuku interrupted him, tears streaming down his cheeks. "No, I can't become a hero without a quirk. That's what Kaken and All Might said." Izuku snapped at Delson, who was shocked to see the boy crying. "No one believed that I can be a hero even if I am quirkless. Hell, not even my MOM believes in me." Izuku collapsed onto his knees and cried. He wasn't having a great day. He just got his butt kicked by Bakugo and got suspended for fighting back. He was saved from a villain twice this day, and his dreams was crushed by his idol. The dream he had about having a strong power only made his dreams unreachable. He knew well that he wasn't going to get a quirk sometime soon, and the entrance exams was only 10 months away. He was just going to embarrass himself trying to go into the best hero school in Japan without a quirk. Izuku was still crying when the man in front of him sighed, making him look. There he saw Delson rubbing the bridge of his nose and groaning some words. "Arg. Of course that blonde idiot would say that," Delson said, making Izuku look at him in shock. "You know All Might?" Izuku asked in between sniffles. The man looked at him with a deadpan. "Know him? Yeah, I know that blonde idiot. I even fought him once." This caught Izuku's attention. "You fought All Might?" the boy asked with wide eyes. Delson looked at the boy and gave him a smirk. "Of course. I clapped that blonde idiot's butt cheeks, and he couldn't keep me down for 3 seconds. He triumphantly said as he remembered his fight against the #1 hero 3 years ago when he was tracking Akira, who was still lying on the ground unconscious. "Let's say I won that fight. It barely was a fight anyway," he thought, and looked at Izuku. "You're kidding, right?" the boy asked the man, who just looked at the boy straight in the eyes. "Did I stutter?" he simply said, proving his point. Izuku's eyes widened and jaw dropped. He just met All Might and the person who beat him and was saved by both. He was about to talk when the banner man talked first. "Anyway, Midoriya, you can be a hero even without a quirk." He saw Izuku open his mouth and quickly cut him off. "And don't listen to what All Might says. Just because he's the #1 hero, that doesn't mean that he's always right. Don't let what other people say pull your dreams down. The only person who can determine your future is you and only you. Delson said as he pointed at Izuku, who was in a mix of shell shock and in awe at the man's words. And can't be a hero without a quirk? Huh. I fought villains and All Might quirkless and I still win. That confused Izuku. You don't use your quirk in battle? Izuku asked while tilting his head, making Delson chuckle at the childish gesture. No, I don't even have a quirk in the first place, he said, grinning like a madman at the boy. It took a solid 8 seconds for Izuku to react at what he said. Huh. Izuku exclaimed, earning a chuckle from the man. He was so confused about this. Is he messing with him? For sure he was the man use a smoke/fire quirk earlier. Izuku was still confused when he remembered the memories that he saw when he touched Delson's hand. Conduit. Delson's a conduit. You're a conduit, Izuku said to the man who smirked at the boy, confirming his claim. Yes, I'm a conduit, Delson said while nodding as he looked at the boy straight in the eyes. And so are you. Izuku blinked once. He blinked again. And again. Before. Huh? Madame? I'm a conduit, Izuku asked incredulously while pointing at himself, earning a nod from the man. He looked down before asking, How? Well, you seems to have an inactive conduit gene like me. And through exposure or contact with conduits those genes became active, making you into a conduit. The older conduit paused before saying, After I touched your hand, my smoke powers were copied into your genes, Izuku. Meaning you now have smoke manipulation in your arsenal. That made the boy nod. Izuku then remembered his dream and now know what the orange orb symbolizes, smoke. That is when he remembered the blue orb. It was lightning. Does that mean I also have his lightning powers? Izuku asked as he looked at the unconscious criminal. It had made sense that I got his lightning powers since I touched his hand. But why is the orb blue and has ice? He thought as he looked back at Delson. Yes, but I don't have an idea in using lightning since I don't have it, Delson said, then looked at Akira. And I'm sure that he won't say a thing about it. Izuku nodded. But here's my proposition, the older smoke user said, making Izuku look at him. In 2 weeks, I'll be leaving to go back to America. So tomorrow, same time, meet me in Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. I'll help you master your smoke abilities, he said as he grabbed Akira Takahashi and turned away. I'll wait for you, he said, walking 2 steps, only for Izuku to call back to him. Tool go there tomorrow morning, Mr. Delson, sir. Izuku yelled out, making Delson look back at him with a raised eyebrow. Huh, I thought you have classes tomorrow morning? The smoke conduit asked. Izuku just scratched the back of his head sheepishly. I kinda got myself suspended for fighting back to a bully and breaking his nose, the green-haired boy said, emphasizing the word bully. Izuku saw Delson's face turn blank, making him nervous all of a sudden. Suddenly, Delson had a smirk on his face. Did it felt good? Was the punch satisfying? He asked the boy, who looked at him in confusion, but when he caught up to what the man was saying, also smirked. Right it was, Izuku said as both conduits laughed, before going their separate ways. Izuku began walking towards home with a smile that he felt was gone after his diagnosis. He was now given a chance to prove himself that he can be a hero, a quirkless hero. He is a conduit, and tomorrow, Delson Rowe, the Bannerman himself, will train him master his smoke powers. His lightning was not a priority for now. He'll just train it when he got into UA. No, scratch that. When he's in UA. Kinda cocky, but can you blame him? He parried 2 explosions from Kakin, no from Katsuki, and broke the Pomeranian's nose while being quirkless, and later at the same day, he became a conduit, met the Bannerman, and became his student for 2 weeks. Let him have this. His confidence somehow was raised after the encounter with Delson, and is really grateful he met the guy. He was snapped out of his daydream when an ambulance rang and sped past by him in a fast pace. Looks like someone else got caught in a villain attack. He mumbled to himself and continued walking home, not realizing that he knew who the person in the ambulance was. As our green-haired protagonist entered the apartment, he was met by his mother, Inko Midoriya. She was standing on the entrance with crossed arms and a disappointed expression on her face. Izuku Midoriya, she said, making him take a step back. She never calls him by his full name, and when she does, he's messed. Care to explain why you got 2 weeks suspension? And where have you been? She asked, looking at Izuku straight in the eye. She thought Izuku would look away as usual when she asked him about school, but to her surprise her son didn't look away and stared back at her, making her flinch. Slightly. I got 2 weeks suspension because I defended myself from bullies and broke Casey Katsuki's nose. To why I'm late, I got caught between 2 different villain attacks with the latter one knocked me unconscious. Don't worry, I was healed by the hero. He said, lying about the last part as he kicked off his shoes and walked past his mom, who was still shocked that his son didn't even stutter. That is when the words registered in her mind. Wait, you broke Katsuki's nose. WHWHY? You two are friends, right? She stuttered out. She was confused at why would Izuku do such a thing to Katsuki. They're friends, right? Izuku stopped and looked back at his mother. No, Mom. We're not friends. We weren't friends anymore since he got his quirk, and I didn't. He started bullying me since we were 4, got mad at me just because I tried to help him up after he fell off to a river, called me names, and used his quirk on me just to prove his point. He paused to take a deep breath before continuing. I punched him in the face, since I had enough, and as an act of self-defense since he pulled the trigger first by using his quirk on me when I wasn't even doing anything to annoy him. To why I didn't tell you, I don't know. I was too focused on getting our friendship back when it can't be fixed because of his ego, Izuku said, and waited for his mom's response. He was surprised when his mother ran towards him and hugged him. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm sorry I didn't know. She apologized to him and cried on his chest. Izuku could only hug her back as patted her back to calm her down before she flooded the apartment. Again, after calming his mom down, Izuku told her about his day, even the encounter with All Might and Delson. But he wasn't going to tell his mom about what All Might had told him and wasn't going to tell her he's a conduit until he's ready. He don't know what his mom would felt about him being a conduit, or some would call it bioterrorist. As his mom left him to make dinner, he entered his room and immediately cringed at the amount of All Might merch he had in his room. Not even hesitating, he quickly removed all of it, as in all of it. After his encounter with the hero and hearing his dream get crushed by the man, he was convinced that the man wasn't worth the amount of money spent on merch. Though he still admired the man's reason to be a hero, he knew well that the man wasn't different from those who told him that he couldn't be a hero without a quirk. After 10 minutes of removing all the merch, his room was bare and looked dead. But better this than a room filled with the face of the person who rejected his dream. He has 2.5 medium boxes of All Might merch and planned to sell them to collectors to earn money to buy new clothes and interior designs for his now plain room. Izuku was about to open his computer to look for All Might merch collectors when his mom's voice was heard from the door. He was confused by what that was about, but shrugged it off. He continued browsing when he found someone who likes to collect All Might merch. The person was called Mirai Sasaki or something. Izuku contacted the person, showed the items, and had came up with a price before accepting the offer. He was going to meet the man before going to the beach tomorrow. Feeling thirsty, Izuku walked towards the door to get a drink. As he exited his room, he overheard his mom on the phone. Mitsuki, calm down. I can't understand what you're saying. Will you slow it down? Inko said to the person on the other side of the line, which was Katsuki's mother. Izuku hadn't saw her since he was 8. How is she? Izuku continued to the kitchen to get a glass of water when his mom spoke once more. What? What happened to Katsuki? That made Izuku stop on his tracks. He looked at the direction of his mom. She was in the living room. He got attacked by a villain? Izuku's eyebrows raised at that. So he also got attacked by a villain, huh? The green-haired boy shrugged it off before continuing to the kitchen to get his glass of water. After drinking the water, he walked back to his room only to meet his mom walking towards his room. His mom saw him and quickly walked towards him, with a worried expression on her face. Izuku, Katsuki was attacked by a villain earlier this afternoon. Inko said to her son, only for him to blink. Oh, I know. I heard you when I was getting my glass of water, he said nonchalantly. Inko didn't question his son's reaction and just told him that they were going to visit him tomorrow on the hospital. Izuku looked at her for a second and shook his head. Sorry, Mom, but I'm going to meet someone tomorrow. I can't go to the hospital, he said, wishing for his mom to not force him on going to the hospital, since he didn't really want to see Katsuki after what had happened in school earlier. But he got attacked by a villain. She was cut off when Izuku interjected. I also got attacked today. Twice, he said, trying not to raise his voice. He really wanted to escape this conversation. But you're free, she was again cut off by Izuku, who had enough of the conversation. He's not my friend, and he will never be. After everything to me making up with him will only lead to me getting blasted by an explosion-enhanced punch. He walked past her and opened the door of his room. Before entering, he stopped at the door and looked back at his mom, who was now crying. It broke his heart to see his mom like this, but he wanted to be selfish for once on his life. If you want to see him, then go. I don't care about him getting attacked and ended up in the hospital, because frankly he deserved it. Good night, he said as he slammed the door. Izuku leaned on the door and heard footsteps going away from his room. He knew that his mom went to her room and was crying. He felt bad for yelling at his mom, and he knew he shouldn't have done that. But hearing her worry about his bully for 10 years and disregarding what he said literally 15 minutes ago, just because the angry Pomeranian was in the hospital. He knew that this was going to be awkward in the morning, so he was going to sleep early tonight to wake up early in the morning to go to the meeting place tomorrow. These All Might merch needs to go. And after that, he'll meet up with Delsin in Dagoba Beach. He promised Izuku that he will train the boy to master the smoke powers to become a hero. As he lay on the bed, a thought then struck him. Who's the shadow figure in my dream earlier? He thought before letting his eyes close, leading him to slumber. Who would have thought that Sir Nightai was an All Might fanboy? Our green-haired protagonist said to himself as he counted his money and placed it in his wallet. He just sold all of his All Might merch to a person named Mirai Sasaki, and to his surprise the buyer was Sir Nightai. He was shocked and surprised that he had sold his collections to a pro hero, who always has a stoic and intimidating appearance that caused the hero fanboy to stiffen and sweat profusely. Izuku only calmed down when the man handed him a white envelope and quickly took the box of merch and dashed away, leaving a confused yet amused Izuku. The envelope was heavy, and when Izuku opened it, he had to stop his eyes from budging out of its sockets. The money earned is plenty enough to buy himself an apartment, had he wishes to move out, buy new furniture, and still have money left. He was on why the money he received was a lot higher than what the hero had offered. The greenette quickly realized that it was probably bribery, to keep him from revealing to the public about the hero's somewhat weird addiction. Izuku shrugged the thought off his head. Even if he tell the public about the man's hobby, no one would believe him. Izuku just mentally thanked the man's generosity. Kinda ridiculous how the pro hero was very generous. Really, really generous. He almost went hero fanboy mode when he forcefully stopped himself from freaking out. It would be embarrassing for him to mutter out loud and creep out the hero. Izuku took a deep breath and calmly asked for an autograph, which the hero gave, by the way. Izuku is now currently walking his way towards Dagoba Beach Municipal Park to meet up with Delsin, who promised to train him control his powers. He was excited to learn to master the power of smoke and try to use lightning. Remembering the two orbs in his dream, he was now sure that the orbs represents the two conduit powers he have. The orange orb is Delsin's powers, and the blue orb is Akira's power. Maybe it was blue instead of red, which confused the young conduit, but set it aside for future questions. He arrived in his destination, and what caught his eye is the piles and piles of junk in the supposedly beautiful beach. There are plastic, scraps, broken bottle, appliances, and cars. Some are still smoking, and others are on fire. Izuku had to cover his nose at the tough smell of burning rubber colliding with the salty breeze of the ocean. But no Delsin to be found. That is, when an explosion in the left part of the beach made Izuku flinch in surprise and fright. He quickly ran towards the source of the explosion and saw Delsin with his arm outstretched and smoking. Izuku looked at the direction where the man was looking and saw a car. Doors bent and busted, glass shards scattered on the sand. Engine smoking, but surprisingly not exploding for some reason, and the body of the car was now covered in dents, holes, and soot. Izuku looked at the man who had noticed him and grinned at his direction. "Hey kid, how long you been there?" Delsin asked the boy as he walked towards Izuku. Said boy just straightened himself and gave the man a small smile. "I just got here, Mr. Delsin." Delsin just gave him a small laugh and softly slapped the boy's back. Izuku almost fell off, if it weren't for the small amount of strength and balance he placed on his legs. "No, mister. Just call me Delsin. I'm not the one for formalities," the older conduit said as he pulled the boy with his arm on Izuku's shoulder. They walked past the still smoking car and came close, but not too close to a screen barrier. "Now that you're here, let's start your conduit training," he said as he let go of the boy and walked toward the screen barrier. Putting a hand over the barrier, Delsin looked back at the boy. "When I first became a conduit, the first thing I did was use smoke dash. It allows me to turn into a cloud of smoke and helps me move faster." After saying that, Delson took steps toward Izuku before facing the screen barrier. Izuku looked over as Delson's body turned into a cloud of smoke, and with a quick move, he passed through the barrier and now formed on the other side of the barrier. The older conduit turned around and gave Izuku a grin. "With this ability, you will be able to pass through any obstacle as long as the obstacle is half solid or has holes on it." Delson smiled and looked at the smoking car. "Before doing that, you need to absorb smoke to keep your energy and as fuel for the super cool stuff you will be doing." Izuku nodded dumbly as he stared at the burning car, then at Delson. "So, how do I do it?" he asked the man. "To be honest, I don't know," he said as he placed a thoughtful expression on his face. "To me, I just felt natural. After getting my powers from Hank, it felt like the smoke is calling out to me." Remembering the time he became a conduit. After that encounter with Hank, it all came naturally. Also, with the help of the blast relays scattered all over Seattle that time, it was easy. Maybe just focus and imagine yourself absorbing the smoke with the palm of your hands, he said as he looked at the green-haired boy and had the urge to sweat drop when he saw the boy in a muttering spree. Though the words he was saying was useful, it was creepy. And some of it so outright ridiculous, hearing the boy compare himself to an anteater or a vacuum. Getting impatient, Delson walked to the green net and flicked Izuku's forehead. "Ack!" Izuku yelped in surprise and slight pain as he nursed his forehead and looked at the man. "I gotta admit, your ideas are cool and all, but you don't need to mutter it out loud like that. It's kinda creepy," he said in a deadpan tone. The boy in question just blushed in embarrassment and scratched his head sheepishly. "Sorry, force of habit," he said quietly. The older conduit just sighed. "I understand, but you need to stop that habit. Not only it's creepy, but it could also reveal your strategy and location to an enemy. So I'd suggest you that if you ever had something in mind, keep it in your mind," he said, and earning a nod from the boy. Izuku placed his index finger and thumb on his chin and thought on how about it for a second. After a bit, he looked at the smoking car and walked closer to it. When he was 1.5 meters away from it, he reached out his arm to it, with his palms facing the vehicle. He began concentrating in absorbing the smoke. "I'm a vacuum. I'm a vacuum. I'm a vacuum," he thought as he felt it, the tingling feeling in his palms. The smoke from the vehicle began to move towards him even without wind. It took a couple for the smoke to make contact with his hand, covering it with an orange glow, and it entered his limb. Izuku felt it enter his body, but didn't felt it at the same time. It took him 35 seconds to completely absorb all the smoke from the car. Izuku felt different as he opened and closed his palm, trying to get use on the feeling of smoke inside him. He felt lighter, stronger, and faster. Izuku then eyed on the screen barrier and thought of how Delson did it. He covered himself in smoke and dashed through the screen. "If I try to do the same thing, I can perform it as well," he thought slowly, not wanting to mutter out loud. He took a deep breath and thought of things that helps him calm down. "Katsudon," he thought as smoke enveloped his body as he dashed towards the screen barrier and passed through it. Delson, who was watching all of this happen, went wide-eyed. He just told him how to absorb smoke and was surprised to see him do it on his first try, but using smoke dash perfectly. Just minutes after seeing Delson use it was outrageous. "This kid's a genius," he thought as he looked at the boy who had his eyes slowly opening. He witnessed as a smile can be seen in the face of the young conduit. Delson can see the pure happiness in the boy's eyes as tears began to build up on the teen's eyes. Izuku can feel the same happiness he felt back in the dream he saw on the day he met Delson. Once again, he felt strong, confident, and powerful. But this time, it's no longer a dream. He will not wake up all of a sudden. This is real. This is closely near to a quirk he never had. This is the power he always wanted. The power he always needed. The power that now is his. This is his power. Izuku was snapped out of his daze as he felt Delson move. He looked at the direction of the man, who was looking at him with pride and proud eyes. Expressions that was quite alien to the green-haired boy. The expression of a proud father to his son. The expression that he never saw on his late father. The expression that he unfortunately didn't saw in his mother's face. Delson began laughing wholeheartedly as he walked towards Izuku and pulls the younger teen into a one-armed hug, catching the boy off guard. "You did great, kid. You learn quickly," Delson said as he ruffled the mop of green hair on the boy's head, causing him to turn red in embarrassment. It took him 5 minutes before Delsin let go of the boy. He grinned at the boy and crossed his arms. You did it in your first try and didn't end up getting stuck between the spaces of the screen barrier. Now, with a couple of more practice, you will be able to summon the smoke faster and use smoke dash with ease. Izuku ignored the first sentence and just thanked the man for his praise. Now that that's out of the way, let me show you the other cool things you'd be able to use with smoke, he said to the boy who just gave him a look of excitement and pure determination. Delsin smirked at this. The boy reminded him of himself back in the days. Young, curious, willing to learn everything in life and the drive to be a superhero. That's all that he needed to help the boy master using smoke. Now, let me show you how to dash in the air and fly using smoke. Excuse me, Mississippi. Where is Katsuki Bakugo's room? I'm a close friend of the patient's mother. Inko asked in the front desk of the hospital. The woman in the front desk looked at a report book and began looking for the name of Izuku's tormentor. Katsuki Bakugo's room is in room 203 in the 3rd floor, the woman said. With a quick thank you, Inko made her way to the elevator and pressed the button that leads to the 3rd floor. She waited quietly as the elevator ascends to the 3rd floor. She begins to think about the conversation she had last night with Izuku. She felt the pain and anger that her son had been keeping to himself when he snapped at her. Inko couldn't blame him, and judging by Izuku's story, Katsuki has been one of the reasons why he is in pain and angry since he had tormented the boy in the past 10 years. Though she heard this from Izuku, she couldn't help but feel bad for the blonde boy. The boy had been her friend's, Mitsuki's, son. She had grown fond of the boy and always thought that he and Izuku were, and still, best friends. Oh, how wrong she was. But she was also in the wrong here. After Izuku was diagnosed as quirkless, she had began distancing herself with her son, taking work after work, making excuses, and sometimes completely ignoring the boy. Inko knew it was wrong, but she was feeling guilty and felt like it was her fault that Izuku was born quirkless. She was full of guilt and pain. She had to endure being a single mother after Izuku's father died in her son's first birthday, not even letting Izuku meet his old man. Speaking of Izuku, when she woke up this morning, her son was already awake and was carrying a box. Inko was confused and was somewhat curious on what the box contains. She was about to ask the boy what the box was for, but didn't get the chance as Izuku left the apartment, seemingly in a hurry. She texted Izuku, asking where he was going, and got a reply of meeting a friend. Inko was contemplating if she needs to be happy because her son has a friend or worried that his son is meeting a friend since he never talked about a friend before. Most of it was her fault for not making time for her son. She was snapped out of her thoughts when the elevator stopped and opened. Inko quickly exited the elevator, not wanting it to close on her. Exiting the elevator, she began walking while looking around, searching for room 203. After a while, she is now facing the room. Inko can hear muffled sobs inside the room. Hearing the voice, she can clearly tell that it was Mitsuki crying. Hesitantly, Inko opened the door and entered the room. As she entered, a blur of ash blonde hair tackled her into a hug. Inko unconsciously patted the back of Mitsuki Bakugo, who was uncharacteristically sobbing on the shoulder of the shorter woman. Inko just pushed all her worries and problems at the side. Right now, she had her friend to comfort and some things to discuss regarding Katsuki's behavior. That's it, kid. Focus on releasing the smoke out of your arms. Delsin yelled out at Izuku, who was currently trying to perform the smoke thrusters move, allowing him to lift himself in the air in a use for mobility. Delsin Ro wouldn't say it out loud, but he was beginning to like the boy's drive and determination to master smoke manipulation in order to be the first conduit pro hero. Delsin doesn't count as a hero since he is technically a vigilante and doesn't have a hero license. Though the law against illegal quirk usage doesn't really apply to people like him or Izuku, he is still a vigilante. A proud one, that is. Regardless, he is willing to help Izuku become the hero that the boy always dreamed on becoming. He knew well how hard it is to be treated badly just because of something you can't really control, since at the first days of him becoming a conduit caused a ruckus on his part, and Izuku being bullied for being quirkless is no different. Removing the negative thoughts in his mind, Delsin showed Izuku the smoke thrusters, car boost, and the variation of the smoke dash, double air dash, which allows smoke dash to be used twice in air. It had only been 1.5 hours after Izuku had tried performing smoke dash, and now he was performing the other moves quickly. to which the two latter moves the boy immediately performed with relative ease, which was really surprising to the older conduit. The smoke thrusters still needs practice and a lot of focus. According to Delsin, when performing the move, the smoke released needs to be equal for the safety of the boy. As they continue the training and seeing Izuku's ridiculously quick improvements, Delsin began to wonder how different it would have been if he didn't encounter Izuku. What would have been the chance of Izuku becoming All Might's successor? Thinking on how it would play out, Delsin had to stop a cringe from forming on his face. Izuku would have probably just painted a large target sign on his back from all the blonde idiot's enemies, and his body wouldn't take it. That was all interrupted when a green blur zoomed overhead him. Pushing back the thoughts on his head, he looked up to see Izuku with smoke on his arms face down as the smoke was circling around his arm, propelling himself in the air. He saw the boy grin as he began changing directions, and to his surprise, even used double air dash. After approximately 5 minutes of being in the air, Izuku landed in front of the man. The green net was smiling widely at the man, who gave him an approving nod. "You did great, kid. A bit slow, but you'll get the hang of it," he said, earning a nod from the boy. "Now that the mobility moves are out of the way, let me show you how to shoot smoke." Delsin was about to show the boy how to do it when Izuku interrupted him. "Oh, you mean like this?" Izuku said as he pointed his palms on broken cabinet. His hand began glowing as a ball of orange smoke came out of his hand and was sent to the direction of the cabinet, blowing it up into pieces. Delsin's jaw comically hit the floor. He was not expecting the boy to perform the move that easily, and surprisingly he knew it already. But how? He faced the boy and looked at him in disbelief. "How did you know that?" he asked the boy, who slightly flinched at the volume. Delsin apologized and asked him again. "Sorry, how did you know that move?" "Well, you see, the day we met." Izuku stammered as he began fidgeting his fingers. "I had a strange dream," he said as he began telling him about the dream he had saw on the day they met. Delsin listened carefully and was in shock of hearing what the boy had dreamed about. 2 orbs. 2 powers. Orange and blue. Smoke and lightning/ice. This is interesting. I need to ask Eugene what the meaning of this means, he thought as his brain digested the information. He then looked at the boy and gave the still fidgeting boy a small smile. "Well, then that speed things up," he said, making the boy raise one eyebrow. "Since the remaining move besides the orbital drop and vent dash is just a different ways to use the smoke shot, it won't be hard for you to master them." Izuku nodded and was about to practice the smoke shot when a hand landed on his shoulder. He looked back at Delsin, who looked at him with a serious expression. "Hold it right there, kid. I know you wanted to master using smoke quickly." He paused and looked at Izuku as he continued. "But you seem to be low on smoke. You need to rest up and use drained smoke to fuel up," he said. As Izuku was about to talk back, Delsin gave him a slight glare. "I'm serious, Izuku. You don't want to be empty on smoke. That's like not sleeping for 3 days. Trust me, I know," he said as he cringed as he remembered passing out after using too much smoke on one day. Izuku sighed and had to agree with the older conduit, albeit reluctantly. The man had more experience than him, and with the cringe plastered on the man's face, Izuku can tell that it was bad. They had a 30-minute break before Izuku used drained smoke to absorb more smoke. They practiced more of the abilities and had to switch locations to an abandoned warehouse that had a lot of air vents. Delsin showed him the move vent dash by using smoke dash toward the vent, and suddenly Izuku saw the man on top of the warehouse where a vent was also present. Izuku tried to do it and nailed it on the first try, probably because he is used to the usage of smoke dash. To his confusion, he didn't know why after exiting a vent he felt weird. He felt really weird. He felt a bit sus. It must have been the adrenaline, right? He and Delsin began playing vent tag as they chased each other by using vent dash from one vent to another. After chasing Delsin like forever, Izuku collapsed on the floor panting heavily. Though he using smoke dash and vent dash, he was confused why he didn't feel his smoke reserves lower. Shrugging, he placed that question for another time and stood up shakily. "Whoa, that was fun," the man yelled out, making his voice echo throughout the warehouse. Izuku glared at the man and crossed his arms. It was fun," he grumbled sarcastically, earning a laugh and a pat on the back from the man. "Oh, come on. Don't be like that. It was a good exercise," he said to the boy, who didn't argue at that statement. "Though, you need to learn how to do parkour. With powers like ours, Parkour will help you become aware of your surroundings and not destroy everything in your way. Delsin began walking out of the warehouse with Izuku following not far from behind. For now, lessons are over. Let's meet tomorrow same time. Thank you for the lessons today, Delsin. It really helps. Even though I wasn't able to catch you in vent tag, I admit that I enjoyed it. Izuku said, smiling at the man, who comically squinted his eyes as a ray of sunlight came out of the boy. So bright. No problem, kid. I'm happy to help. After all, conduits look out for one another, he said as he turned and walked away. See you tomorrow, Izuku. Don't be late, he said as he waved his hand. Yes. See you tomorrow, Izuku said as he turned to the direction of his house. Izuku looked at the sky. It was still mid-afternoon. He smiled as he rethought of all the training he had done today. In such a short amount of time, he was able to master the smoke dash, smoke shot, and drain smoke. Delsin praised him about it, and even called him a prodigy and/or genius. In his opinion, he was just a fast learner. He had always been one. Last year, he was able to solve a 3x3 Rubik's Cube within 5 minutes in the first try after watching a video from YouTube. Katsuki, however, said it was useless in the hero works. All of his talents are useless in the hero works. Though, it didn't really bother him. It was too pathetic to argue about it. As he arrived their apartment and entered it, Izuku walked straight to his room. He needed to take a shower and get some rest. Entering his room, he fished out his wallet and phone out of the pocket of his pants and placed them on his study table. Quickly taking some clean clothes, he entered the bathroom as a message had popped up on his phone. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.